What's up, y'all? TBrown31 with JaboctheGreat. Once again, we are back with the last word and our weekend picks with this weekend in football for the NFL Week 5 and college football Week 6. Season's already moving so fast. Let's get right into the picks with our pick for college football this week. We got a top 15 matchup, Red River Showdown, rivalry, shootout, whatever you want to call it, between Texas and Oklahoma. We are both going with Texas in this one. Last year was an interesting game for Texas and Oklahoma. Uh, Texas literally killed Oklahoma last year, 49-0. Oklahoma didn't have that good of a season in their first year under Brent Venables, but this year they're 5-0. They're up back where they seem like they should be after all those years of success with Bob Stoops, Lincoln Riley. Seems like they're back up there, but I think Texas right now, they're still the better team. Uh, Despite really good quarterback play from Oklahoma, I think right now Texas is the better team. They should come out with the victory in this one.
Yeah, Oklahoma has looked solid this year. Nothing to really be too upset about. But Texas has just had the better season. They've got better talent. I think Quinn Ewers has had a really good season so far. Xavier Worthy has had a good time. So I'm gonna assume that Texas is gonna get this one. I'm not assuming that it's gonna be another 49-0 game. I don't think Texas is gonna crush them like that. I think Oklahoma has played better this season, but I do expect Texas to come out of this one. Haven't been on a roll like this in a long time, so it's fun to see Texas being 5-0. And it'll be interesting to see how they go from there and if they can keep it up. From there, we're going to jump in to our NFL picks. We got 4 of them this weekend, and we're going to start in the AFC South with an AFC South matchup. Tennessee Titans against the Indianapolis Colts. Colts currently sitting at the head of that division, Titans sitting at the bottom, but all 4 teams are 2-2. We are both going to go with the Colts on this one. Me personally, and the Titans have had a really weird season. Both of their wins have been, well, one was a whooping against the Bengals, and one of them they persevered and came back and took out the Chargers. But they've had a weird season. Their losses have been a little ugly. I think the Colts have looked really good. Zach Moss is starting to come up into himself. Anthony Richardson had some really, really good games, except one of their wins was actually a Gardner Minshew win. And then Michael Pittman has had a good time. So I think this is going to be a decent season for them. I'm excited to see what the Colts are going to do, but I think that they're going to be a little more prepared to take out the Titans. Titans have just not really moved me that much this season.
Yeah, the whole AFC South is just really weird right now. I mean, every team is 2-2. You know, we talked earlier when we did our season preview. Like we figured this was going to be the Jags division. It's not like they were world beaters last year either, but they came out at the end of the season. They had that great run, and we thought that would continue. And so far, it's just been the weirdest division in football, I'd say right now. I mean, every team 2-2. And you just mentioned it, Titans. You literally lost by the same score that you beat the Bengals by to the Browns. So it's really weird. Obviously, the Browns are better than the Bengals right now, clearly. But there's a lot going on. I think the Colts are just playing a little bit more consistently. Wasn't too happy to see, if you're a Colts fan, that they were down by like 20 last week against the Rams for losing overtime. But that Baltimore win, even though it was a little bit tainted by that non-call at the end, I think that showed them that the Colts can play pretty well. And then that Houston win as well. So I would, yeah, we're both going with the Colts, but this one's pretty weird. I think the Colts right now are just more of a consistent team, I would say, in their play, and it's just not as many as the ups and downs as we get from the Titans. So I'd go with them. Still don't know what the heck's going on with Jonathan Taylor though, but that just remains to be seen. And then next up, we got another game overseas with the Jaguars. They just played the Falcons overseas, beat the mess out of them. They're facing off against the Bills, who just beat up the Dolphins. So we're going to go with the Bills in this one. Both of us are picking Buffalo. And it's just kind of the same thing here. There's a little bit more consistency for the Bills. Since that first loss, they've beat opponents by at least 20 points in each game. Starting with the Raiders, 38-10, 37-3 with Washington, and then just last week against Miami. Jaguars, on the other hand, I really have no idea what to expect from them. They played a pretty decent game against the Chiefs, but they fell short in that one. They got beat up by Houston, and then they turned around and beat the Falcons. can't really know what to expect from them. I can't expect pretty good offense from the Bills. And we did talk about it in the Bills Dolphins video. They do have some injuries now um, on the defensive side, but I think they'll still persevere, still put up a lot of points, and be able to come out with this one with a W.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where I think the Jags have had a weird season. They seem to somehow always lose to the Texans. I don't even know how I want to cause that against them too much. But even if they were 3-1, if they came back against the Chiefs and were 4-0 right now, I'm not sure that I could take them against the Bills. There's just a lot of offensive talent in the Bills right now. They've really taken off since that Week 1 loss against the Jets. I think they look like one of the better teams in football. So I'm not expecting the Jags to be crushed. It very well could happen. As Terrence just said, the Bills have won each of their last 3 by at least 20. So, I mean, it's very possible that the Jaguars end up on the wrong end of that. But I do think that if the Jags get their offense together and can play a little more consistently, that it will at least be a decent game. They strung it together against the Falcons eventually. But yeah, I think it'd be hard to take the Jaguars on this one. I think the Bills are going to get a pretty good win here. We're going to go to another divisional matchup with the Ravens and Steelers. Ravens sitting at 3-1, Pittsburgh Steelers at 2-2. We're both going to take the Ravens on this one. This one is not as hard. Steelers have had some really good defensive shining moments, and obviously the Ravens, their one loss was a rough one, dropping it to Gardner Minshew's Colts. But the Steelers have also had one of the worst offenses that we've ever seen, and I think it'd just be really hard to bet on them at this moment. And I don't really know what they can do to fix that. I mean, they've got Kenny Pickett is not like horrible. I'm not sure how the injuries affected him. Najee Harris isn't bad. George Pickens isn't bad, but they just can't seem to get it together. Play calling and anything like all that stuff is not doing very well. Whereas last week, Lamar put together one of his best games in a while, getting more comfortable with Zay Flowers, getting back into comfort with Mark Andrews after Andrews missed week 1. So I think that the Ravens just look like they're ready to go. I think they're really getting up. They're also on kind of a run since that. I mean, obviously their loss to the Colts was 2 weeks ago, so they haven't lost one and gone on 3-1. But they've had some pretty good wins. They've been a pretty consistent team so far this season, and I think they'll. I wouldn't expect it to be a crushing. I mean, the Texans beat the Steelers 30-6. We covered that, but I'm not sure that the Ravens would. It's an AFC North matchup. There's always something in the air. I'm sure it'll be a good game, but I think the Ravens will come out on top.
Yeah, I think in this one, I mean, we discussed for a long time on Monday the absolute ineptitude of the Steelers offense. So we probably don't need to talk about it much more. Anybody that's watching the games or at least keeping up with it knows um, they have offensive issues. So main thing here, I think it will be a close game, like you said. Is AFC North division rivalries are always generally close, but especially here, especially the last few seasons, these teams they always seem to match up really well. Um, I would say it would be on the lower scoring side. I think obviously the biggest discrepancy here for me, and I know this might be skewed because of last week against Houston for the Steelers, but defensively, the Steelers we expect them to be great. That hasn't been the case. I mean, they're at 400 something yards allowed per game. On the flip side, the Ravens double the Steelers in rushing yards offensively. I think that'll probably continue. I mean, Najee Harris, that first year was pretty good, but since then it's just hasn't been good. Um, Kenny Pickett, if he does play, obviously that will help them more than having a backup out there. But I just don't really see, based off of last week, and even the San Francisco games, the 2 games that they've lost, they've just looked completely lost on offense and defense. And I think the Ravens will probably get a good win led by the running game. And then the game of the week. Finally, the NFL has figured out we should put good games on in prime time that we know will probably be good. We got the Cowboys and the 49ers. The Cowboys right now, they're of course 3-1. San Francisco, one of the last undefeated teams in the NFL. Everybody's been talking all week, Niners have knocked them out the playoffs the past 2 years. Will that matter? Will it not matter? I think it does it does mean something to the players, but we have to take the game for what it is, a matchup of 2 really good teams in which we both are picking the Niners to come out with the victory. I think in this one, it's going to be I don't think there's going to be a murder here. I think I respect the 49ers a lot more than I respect the Cowboys, but I don't think this is going to be, they're not going to kill the Cowboys. I think it'll probably be low scoring again. And we've seen how these teams have matched up, in the postseason. They've been low scoring games. I think what's more likely is probably around 20 to maybe 14, low scoring. I think the main thing is Christian McCaffrey is probably going to be running pretty well. That's been kind of the Cowboys' issue. At least it was in the Cardinals game, the running game or their run defense. So yeah, I think it's more just gonna probably come down to a last drive or something. Will the Cowboys be able to drive down and score? I'm gonna say no. So I got Niners by a touchdown.
Yeah, I think this one's gonna be a close game. I think it will probably be on the lower to like mid level in the scoring range. Cowboys have had a pretty dominant season, right? 38-3 over the Patriots, 30-10 over the Jets, 40-0 over the Giants, which was maybe more shocking in week one than it would be now, as the Giants have fumbled their way through the rest of the season. But they do take that loss to the Cardinals. Their defense suddenly disappears. They get ran all over. And the Niners had a scare against the Rams, 30-23, divisional matchup that they were able to squeak out of. But they handled Pittsburgh 30-7. They handled the Giants 30-12, and the Cardinals 35-16. So they played two of the same opponents and had almost the same result on one of them. And then obviously the Niners just came out on top of the Cardinals, whereas the Cowboys were not able to do so. I think this one will be a good game, and the Cowboys do have a chance to win. This is probably the hardest pick that we've had all season so far. But I do think the Niners will be able to get it because I think it's going to be closer. And yeah, it comes down to a drive. Am I going to trust the Cowboys offense more than the Niners defense? Probably not. And I think it'll be becoming a very, very close victory for the Niners here. They'll probably improve to 5-0. Cowboys probably should be dropped to 4-1 here. They should be going into this 4-0, but they dropped that Cardinals game, so they're probably going to end up being 3-2 after this one by a loss of about a touchdown.